Recording in progress.
Pwede ako, ay wait lang. I-mute ko lang muna. Okay. So, I'll be recording the discussion today. So, before we start, may I know sino dito yung zero experience or knowledge about bookkeeping or accounting? Meron dito, zero? I mean, yung wala
Ako.
talagang idea. Okay. Sige,
Ako
don't
po.
worry. Okay, sige. We'll make
Ako din po.
we'll make the discussion simpler, or mas simple. Basic lang
Ako,
tayo.
ma'am.
And then, madami-dami kayo. Okay, sige. Lang ha. Okay, nag-struggle pa yung ba? May nag-ano pa. Sa setup, sige. Sige, I'll start na. So first, what is our learning objectives for today? So of course, we have to define what is bookkeeping in contrast with accounting. We have to understand its basic purpose. Okay, so sorry, nadidistract ako sa ano. Please, lang, pakibantay po nung mics ninyo. Okay. Okay, first, we have to understand also the basic concepts. What are the basic concepts of bookkeeping, and understand what is the need or why we need bookkeeping. So, in relation to preparing financial reporting, what are the financial reporting standards? What are the elements of financial statements? So, if you're familiar with financial statements, your balance sheet, your income statement, yan. So those are the basic financial statements, which we'll be discussing later, and then we'll try to make financial statements based on our exercises. So also we have to understand the basic accounting equation. What is the basic accounting equation and the double entry bookkeeping? What do you mean by double entry? So from ngayon pa lang, siguro naman if you don't have any experience or knowledge about bookkeeping, you heard naman siguro debit and credit. So that is the double entry. So debit and credit. Ibig sabihin, pag may debit ka, may credit ka. So that's why tawag siya double entry. Okay. We'll be discussing it further as we go on our lecture. Next. Okay. I have a video lang na ipakita sa inyo before we proceed to our... Please let me know ha if hindi nyo marinig or walang audio yung video.
Bookkeeping. Here is where it all...
I'll stop lang muna. Marinig ba ang audio? Is it audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
po.
Yes, but medyo choppy yan.
Medyo choppy ako. Baka, okay, sige.
starts.
I'll just off my camera na lang muna.
The collection of information. In order to be able to appreciate its importance, try to imagine for a second that tomorrow you wake up and all the bookkeeping records in the world are gone. The first thing that you find out is that you don't have any electricity at home. The electricity company shut it down because they didn't have any records of you paying the bill. That's an awful surprise, right? But wait, there's more. You decide to go to the nearest supermarket and buy some juice, butter, and bread. But when you get there, they tell you that they don't have any. They didn't know that they were out of stock because all of their bookkeeping records are gone. You're starving and you don't have any electricity at home. Miserable situation. Perhaps some shopping in the city center would cheer you up. You decide to withdraw some money from the nearest bank. But when you get there, you find out that the bank doesn't have a record containing your name. They've lost the information about your savings. They are gone. You get the point, right? Modern society as we know it simply cannot function without bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is fundamental for corporations, banks, investment funds, and even individuals. Let's provide another example. Think about GE, the General Electric Company. GE has over 300,000 employees, and it operates in more than 170 countries in the world. The company operates in business sectors like appliances and lighting, aviation, financial services, energy management, healthcare, oil and gas, power and water, and transportation. Can you imagine how complex its operations are? Is GE going to be able to monitor its businesses without a proper bookkeeping system in place? Is it going to be able to understand whether its operations in a given country are profitable or not? Or whether there is a product that is not profitable and should be discontinued? Recording every single transaction that takes place within the firm is paramount at this level of complexity. It is proper bookkeeping that ensures that all necessary information has been recorded and is ready to use. I am sure that you get the point. Bookkeeping is the cornerstone around which all accounting is constructed.
Guys, baka nakalimutan nyo ha, your microphones are unmute. So, paki-mute lang. Okay. So, based on the video, it asked the question, so why? Why bookkeeping is very important? Why do we need to learn the basic bookkeeping and accounting? So first, because number one, they keep track of where money comes from and how it is spent. So from this, we learn that we have two types of cash flows. So, di ba? So where money comes from and how it is spent. So we have two types of cash flow. Please remember, we have cash inflows. So you're familiar with this naman siguro. Cash inflows and cash outflows. When we say inflows, those money that comes in, no, pumapasok sa business ninyo or sa corporation or sa business. And then cash flow. What are cash flow? Those money that is spent expenditures ninyo, expenses. So cash outflows, lumalabas na pera from the business. Second, why it is important? Because it is required by law. You are paying your taxes, you are registering your business. So in relation to that, you submit your basic financial statements. You have your balance sheet, your income statement. Oh. Wait lang. Okay, am I still audible?
Yes po.
Okay, akala ko na-disconnect ako. Okay, thank you. So third is they are used as the basis for financial statements. Of course, if you don't have your bookkeeping, if you don't record your daily transactions, saan natin kukunin yung basis for financial statements? How do we know how much is the value or the balance for cash? Magkano ang cash in bank mo? Magkano ang cash on hand? How do we keep track of your expenses? How much do you spend for electricities, for utilities, for salaries, payroll, etc. So, diba? We have to make sure that we have a proper bookkeeping process for us to have a basis for your financial statements. Next slide. So how do we do bookkeeping? So how? Paano tayo tinutulungan ng bookkeeping in relation to that previous slide? Of course, it offers even how you can present reliable and relevant information about your business enterprise. It shows your current financial conditions. So yung position ng business mo, is it earning ba? May profit ba or loss? performance. How does your business perform? And of course, cash flow. Again, sabi ko kanina, it help us keep track of how we spent our money and those money na pumapasok sa business natin. And of course, it helps you in making decisions. So what is bookkeeping? Let us define bookkeeping on its technical term, no? It's very technical. When we say bookkeeping, it's actually in its nasa pangalan niya na mismo. You have your book and you have your keeping. So you have your book of accounts. If you're familiar with journal, yung general ledger, yung kulay brown, the columnar, if you pansin niyo yan sa bookstores, etc. And so that's our example of book of accounts or book na ginagamit sa bookkeeping and accounting. So what is bookkeeping? It's a mechanical task. It involves the collection of basic financial data. Kumbaga, you are just collecting basic financial data, your financial transactions every day. So also, please remember that bookkeeping is a recording. It's on a day-to-day basis of the financial transactions and informations which pertains to a business. You cannot say na mag-record ako ngayon, bukas hindi. No, in bookkeeping, it's a day-to-day basis. You have to record all transactions daily. So it's okay, my internet is prompting na unstable ako. So please, if I'm unaudible, paano lang, pa-chat lang ako sa Zoom box, sa Zoom chat ha. So it pertains to the day-to-day basis of financial transactions and information pertaining to a business. Why? It ensures that records of the individual financial transactions are correct. So bakit siya day-to-day basis? Of course, for us to ensure na tama siya, it's up to date and comprehensive. Why do we say it's comprehensive? Because in bookkeeping or in accounting, it's comprehensive because it comprises a period, so a period or a term, a whole accounting period. So what do you mean by that? In the, we have two types of accounting period. We have the calendar year and the fiscal year. In the Philippines, we used calendar year method because it's more in sync with the deadlines with the BIR, etc. Yan. So, ibig sabihin ng calendar year, we start with January, we end with December. When we say naman fiscal year na calendar, usually this is used ng mga foreign business na, outside abroad yan. So, ibig sabihin yan, you start any month of the year as long as the accounting period is 12 months. For example, you start with June 2024, you end with June 2025. So that's the fiscal year. So, accounting also or bookkeeping is sa accounting or sa bookkeeping, number one dyan, accuracy. Accuracy is very vital to the process. Why? Because in bookkeeping, it's procedural. In accounting, it's both accounting and bookkeeping, it's procedural. Ibig sabihin may mga step. May step 1, step 2, step 3, yan. So, very vital na accuracy because if mali ka na sa step 1, yung succeeding steps mo, mali na yon. Okay? So, how do you know na may mali? Doon mo lang yan malalaman if may mali ka, if you are on the latter part na ng process. Kasi doon mo na ma-figure out ay hindi bumalance, hindi tama yung pag-journalize, hindi tama yung summary ko. So, it's very vital kasi uulit ka. Especially if you're doing it manually. Now naman, we have softwares naman. So, we have accounting software. So, easier na siya to keep track kung may errors. Yan, mas madali siya i-edit. But, ang cons lang is if you're doing it manually. So, you have really to be attentive and be accurate on recording your transactions. So, nasa ano pa lang ako ha, nasa concepts pa lang. Hinihinay muna tayo para mamaya, dandahan muna tayo para mamaya, if we apply it on the exercises, mas easier ma-absorb, especially if you have no background with bookkeeping and accounting. So what is the nature of bookkeeping? Okay, bookkeeping is systematic. It means to record transactions in chronological order. What do you mean by that? Sunod-sunod siya. Hindi pwede na, kunyari, January 4. Okay, record ka ng transactions for January 4 sa libro mo. Next, of course, January 5, 6. It's in chronological order. Hindi pwede na January 4, tapos 5, tapos nakalimutan mo i-record yung 6, nag-skip ka, tapos nabigla, nag-skip ka, tapos nag-7 ka, tapos binalikan mo sa libro mo. No, it's the bookkeeping process must be systematic. It should be in chronological order. That's why it's a day-to-day basis. Hindi mo siya dapat kalimutan kasi dapat araw-araw nire-record mo lahat ng transactions. Second, financial aspect. When we talk about bookkeeping, hindi naman lahat ng transactions nire-record. Okay, when we talk about transactions in bookkeeping, we have business transactions and financial transactions. When we say business transactions, these are transactions na in relation to the operation of the business, but it does not involve value or money, okay? Example, a business transaction is when you hire a bookkeeper, when you hire a secretary, when you hire an office staff. So it's a business transaction. It's a business transaction because ano siya, it does not involve value. Wala siyang money doon. Kailan papasok yung financial aspect? When you pay for the salary of that office staff, of that bookkeeper, of that secretary, yun ang financial aspect. When it already involves value or money. So, doon na papasok yung bookkeeping. Doon na tayo magre-record, okay? Third is the book of accounts. We have several types of books used in bookkeeping. So, examples of these are journal, your ledger, and your columnar. So, ito yung mga examples ng libro na ginagamit natin in the real practice. But again, sabi ko nga, sometimes hindi na siya ginagamit talaga because companies or business have their softwares. But of course, BIR still gives you or requires you to submit your book of accounts. Diba? May mga tatak pa yan. Okay? So, let's go to the bookkeeping process. Isa-isahin natin yung mga gagawin natin for today, okay? So, what is the bookkeeping process? Paano ba nag-start ang isang bookkeeping? How do we start? Paano ba natin isa-start ang pagre-record? Number one, you have to really start with your source documents. What are the source documents? So a source document is the beginning of the entire business bookkeeping process. So this is the item, the invoice, or the... Wait lang ha. I-mute ko lang. Okay. So we have this invoice or bill for which the official ledger book entry is based. So don't be confused sa definition niya. So ibig sabihin lang yan, number one, you have to prepare the source documents. What are the source documents? Resibo. These are evidences of your transactions. Invoices ba yan? Sales invoice ba yan? Purchase order ba yan? Bill of lading, bill of delivery, etc. So these are your receipts. Kung saan binibase natin yung entry, yung journal entry. Saan ba nakabase yung recording natin? Doon sa source documents. So these detailed documents must be precise in order to effectively keep the books. So, diba, if you have knowledge if you have experience, when you are submitting your annual returns, BIR compliances ninyo, you submit or you attached your ORs, your resibo. Hindi lang naman official receipt ha, lahat. Sales invoice, purchase order, etc. So, lahat yun ina-attach nyo because those are the source documents. Doon nakabase lahat ng transactions ninyo na na-record ninyo sa libro, nakabase doon sa mga resibo. Kumbaga, it is evidenced by the receipts. So, we'll be discussing it further later on. So, pag meron na kayong source documents, if you have this item or invoices, may mga resibo na kayo. The next step is you determine the effect. Ano bang effect ng transaction na to? Ano bang effect ng transaction na to sa business ko? So take note that every single transaction, including all invoices, the bills and expenses, affect your business. Even if the effect is small, it still must be recorded, okay? Kailangan nyo pa rin siya i-record. For example, meron kayong source document, you have your meron kayong resibo because you paid for your utilities. You paid for utilities. Now, yung utilities na nabayaran ninyo, anong effect nun? Those utilities na nabayaran ninyo, it's expenses. Diba? Utilities expense siya. Now, how that transaction affect your business? Pag nagbayad ka ng expenses, anong nawala sa'yo? Cash, because you paid for it. Diba? You incurred expenses, you paid cash. So that is how you analyze the transaction. So hinahinay lang tayo. Mamaya you will have mas malawak na overview of the transaction. I'm just nagsa-start lang tayo i-pile up yung mga concepts. Okay? If you have this transaction, second thing to do, analyze what is the effect of this transaction to my business. Does it increase my cash? Or nababawasan ba ako ng cash? Did I incur expenses? Etc. Okay? So third niyan, if you already analyzed how did that transaction affects you or affects your business, third, is you make journal entries. Yun ang record, or magre-record ka na. So in business bookkeeping, a journal is where each transaction is recorded. So the transaction information also stays in the original source document and is noted on each of the accounts that it affects. Example yan, sabi ko kanina, you paid for utilities, diba? You paid for your utilities expenses. Nagbayad ka ng kuryente, tubig. So nagbayad ka ng tubig and kuryente, that is utility. So utilities expense. So pag nagbayad ka, how would you record this transaction in your business? So you make journal entries. Ibig sabihin ng journal entries, recording. Okay? Bakit tinatawag natin siyang journal entries? Because yung record sinusulat mo sa journal sheet or journal book. Kaya siya tinatawag na journal entries. Okay? So how do you record? Okay, for example, wag mo na i-overthink ha yung mawala pang knowledge talaga. So for example, ang record mo is you record utilities expense, debit, you credit cash, yan. So that is how you make journal entries. I'll have example later on. Wag muna ninyong i-overthink. Sa step muna tayo para alam niyo kung ano yung sunod-sunod na gagawin natin. So if you already recorded your transactions for the whole year or for the whole accounting period, anong gagawin mo sa end? Okay? Sa end niyan, isa-summarize mo yan, gagawan mo yan ng trial balance, gagawan mo yan ng accounting reports. So dito na papasok yung mga financial statements mo sa end of period procedures. Nasa end part na yan. And after that, pag may financial statements ka na, pag may accounting reports ka na, pag na-summarize mo na lahat, you have to close the books. Okay? You have to close your books. What do you mean by that? Sabi ko nga kanina, every accounting period ka gumagawa ng bookkeeping or ng accounting, every accounting period ka nagbo-bookkeep and nag-account ng mga transactions. So at the end of the period, you have to close the books. Ibig sabihin yan, the records and the transactions for that year is only for that year. So, yung librong yun for that year, i-close mo na siya for the next accounting period. Example, bago lang tayo ng 2024. Okay? Some does not, yung iba hindi pa nako-close ang books. Gumagawa pa sila ng, end of period procedures ngayon for the month of January. That's the reality. Ganun talaga sa practice. Hindi yan ibig sabihin na December 31 or December noong 2023 na close na ang books. No. Kasi may iba pa na ngayon pa lang kino-close ngayong January. Okay? Kasi nadadala pa yung work. But ang ibig sabihin lang yan, the books for 2023, i-close mo na yon. You will begin your accounting period, you will begin your books for 2024. Bago na naman siya. So, yan yung ibig sabihin yan. So, this is just an overview of the bookkeeping process. Diba? Number 1, you have to prepare resource documents. Resibo. Yung resibo na yon, yung transaction na yon, how does that transaction affect your business? So, doon ka na mag-analyze. What is the effect? Yun yung second. Third, i-record mo ngayon yung transaction. Okay? Sa libro. After mo ma-record lahat ng transaction sa libro, at the end of the accounting period, you're preparing for your accounting reports, your financial statements, and after that, you have to close the books. So that is the general overview of the bookkeeping process. But overview pa lang yan. We have to dissect pa kasi okay. Wait lang ha. Okay, so we have to dissect these steps in contrast or in relation to accounting process. So, pag sinabi bang bookkeeping and accounting, same lang ba sila? Actually, the same lang naman sila in process, but it's different kasi accounting is more broader than bookkeeping process. Kasi ang bookkeeping process, it only comprises the recording, the recording of the transactions, the making of financial statements, yan, etc. Pagdating naman sa accounting, it's more broader kasi it comprises a lot of steps pa. Meron na dyan yung mga pag-analyze mo nung financial statements, yan. Pag-analyze mo ng financial position, mga ratios, okay? Solvency, profitability, yun. Doon na papasok yung sa managerial side ng accounting. Ang bookkeeping, focus lang talaga siya sa recording and sa pag-prepare ng mga FS. Okay, now let's compare it with accounting. Before tayo mag-step one step, per step, okay? Okay, what is accounting? So accounting naman is the process of identifying, measuring, and communicating economic information to permit informed judgment and decisions by users of information. Now, in simpler term, when we say accounting, ina-identify natin yung transactions na dapat nating i-record. Like what I said earlier, hindi lahat ng transactions nire-record. Diba? We have business transactions and financial transactions. Only financial transactions are recorded in the books. What do you mean by that again? Those transactions na which involves value or money, okay? Baka nag-choppy ako kasi nag-pump sa akin. Unstable. Okay. Also, second, it's measuring. You measure. Magkano ba ang value nito? So, magkano ba siya i-record? And lastly, accounting is communicating. Ito yung wala sa bookkeeping. Communicating economic information, aside from FS, meron dito mga managerial reports na, etc. That is used by decision makers or the users of information. Sino ba itong mga users nito? Again, aside from the management, we have your investors, okay? Kung malaki kang company, if you're a big company, may mga shareholders ka, etc. So that's are the users of information and even the public, okay? Kaya napapansin niyo if you're a big corporation, they're actually releasing their financial statements like San Miguel. Meron yan sila sa website nila, nilalabas nila lahat yan. Okay? Their financial position, their income statement, etc. So there are 3 important activities that is included in the definition of accounting. So as I said earlier, ito yon, you identify. So this is the process na i-analyze mo yung events and transactions to determine whether or not they will be recognized in the books. Like what I said earlier, only accountable or financial events are recorded in the books. Hindi lahat nire-record. Second, you measure. So assigning numbers, you have you have to assign numbers. Of course, dito mo na i-record kung magkano siya. It involves monetary terms, okay? So, pera. So, for us, we use peso, yun. And then, communicating, okay? The process of informing economic data into useful accounting information we use as financial statements and other accounting reports for dissemination to the following users. Now, what is the purpose of accounting? The basic purpose lang is to provide information about economic activities that is intended to be useful in making economic decisions. So the purpose is really to provide information. Based na yan sa FS. So you have your balance sheet, your income statement. So what are the basic considerations when we talk about accounting? Number one, accounting equation, the accounting standards, and the financial statements. Okay, let's start with the accounting equation. Now, ito na yung medyo na part. Dito na talaga papasok yung part na you have to understand or you have to remember the basic accounting equation. What do you mean by the account? Ano ba yung account? When you say account in bookkeeping or in accounting, sorry, baka maingay. Ito yung, if you're familiar with cash, accounts receivable, accounts payable, notes payable, expenses, those are examples of account titles. Yun sila. Yun yung ibig sabihin ng account. Your receivables, account payable, etc. Notes receivables, note payable, your depreciation expense, accumulated depreciation, yan, that is account titles. Later on, I'll show you a chart of accounts, okay? Don't worry, naka-systematize na yan sa ating lecture. So, it's the basic summary. The basic summary of an accounting is the account. The simplest form of an account is a T account. What do you mean by a T account? We call it T account because para siyang T. It's a T. You have to remember the T account. Okay, yung sabi ko kanina, account title. For example, cash. Okay, that's an account title, yung cash. So, sa T, meron siyang left side, diba? Meron siyang right side. When we talk about debit, it's always on the left side. You have to remember that. Debit, nasa left side. Credit, nasa right side, okay? So, isa-isa muna. So, alam nyo na ngayon yung account title, yung account, yung T account. The T account has two sides, the debit and the credit. The debit is on the left, the credit is on the right. So, yun muna, okay? Debit left, credit right. Para mas easier ang pag-understand. Dagdagan lang natin yung concept. Okay. Now, you already know that the account has two sides. Yun yung double entry. You have your debits and your credit. Now, what is the accounting equation? Dagdagan natin yung concept na yun. Ano yung accounting equation natin? So, please remember the accounting equation, assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. Isa-isahin ko yan i-discuss mamaya kung ano yung assets, ano yung liabilities, ano yung owner's equity, overview lang. When we say assets, these are resources, pag-aari mo. Kumbaga, these are your properties. Examples ng assets, cash, your service vehicles, your buildings, your plants, your plants, I mean, pag sinabi kong plants, yung mga planta mo, etc., machineries mo, equipments mo, that are assets, okay? Building, house and lot, land, okay? That's our assets. Examples ng mga liabilities, madaling tandaan, obligations, liability, utang, okay? For short, utang, liabilities. Now, what is owner's equity? Owner's equity, you have just to remember, it's the capital account. Ito yung capital ang owner's equity, ito yung account nung may-ari nung business, okay? That's owner's equity. Dyan papasok yung capital mo, yung profit mo, Yan, okay? Just an overview para hindi siya muna masyadong crowded, okay? Start natin yung account title, yung P accounts, you have your debits and your credits, right? Debit nasa left, credit nasa right. Now, dagdagan natin accounting equation. What is the accounting equation? Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. What do you mean by this accounting equation? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng accounting equation na ito? When we say, please take note, maritime equal sign. Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. Ibig sabihin, pag inat mo daw tong dalawang ito, the total or the sum of the liability and the owner's equity must always equal the total amount of the assets. Okay? Tandaan nyo yan. Okay? Kasi we'll have an exercise naman nito mamaya. Tandaan nyo, assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. Okay? Yun muna tandaan nyo. Huwag muna nating i-complicate para dagdag lang. Okay, and okay, now, the debits and the credits or of the double entry system, as we discussed earlier, diba? Ano yung double entry system? What do you mean by that? It means you have debits, you have credits. Ibig sabihin, pag may nilagay ka sa credit, may lalagay ka din sa credit. That's why it is called the double entry system. Okay. Okay, tandaan natin. Kanina, ang alam lang natin, debit is on the left side. Credit is on the right side. Now, dagdagan natin yon. When we say debit in accounting or in bookkeeping, it's the value you received. Debit is value received. Natanggap mo. Okay? Credit naman is the value parted with. Ibig sabihin, this is the value na pinalabas mo or nawala sa'yo. Parted with, okay? Debit nasa left, credit nasa right. Dagdagan natin yon. Debit is the value received. Credit naman, it's the value parted with. Again, take note in the double entry system, for every debit, there is an equal and opposite credit recorded in the accounting records. Ibig sabihin, pag may na-record ka sa debit, automatic, you have also an equal and opposite credit na i-record. What do you mean by that equal and opposite credit recorded in the accounting records? For example, may na-record ka na 5,000 sa debit. Dapat yung record mo sa credit, ang total nun, 5,000 din. So, it should be equal. Okay? Examples, mamaya let's have an example later. Okay, eto. Let's apply this debits and credits sa accounting system. Sa accounting equation. Again, di ba, we discussed that the accounting equation is assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. Now, when we talk about assets, how do we determine yung paano natin siya i-record or ano yung effect nung record na yun sa assets natin? So, for example, asset. If you want to increase your assets, please take note lang. Ano lang muna ha, dandahan lang. Especially to those who don't have any background. When we talk about assets, example, cash. Okay, again, di ba, sabi ko, assets are resources or pagkaari mo. I'll discuss it later on, specifically, kung ano tong assets, liabilities on the next slide. Isa-isahin lang muna natin. So, when we talk about assets, example, cash. If you want to increase the value of your asset, paano mo siya i-record? Saan mo siya i-record? Nasa debit ba or nasa credit? So you just have to be familiar with this table. Again, if you want to increase your assets, like your cash, saan mo siya i-record? The record of the increase is on the debit side, nasa left side. But if you want to decrease your asset or your cash balance, how do you record it? Put it on the credit side. Sorry. Ibig sabihin yan, what do you mean by that? If you received money, if you received cash, i-debit mo. Kasi 'di ba, the value received, debit. If nagpalabas ka ng pera because nagbayad ka ng expenses, anong mangyayari sa cash mo? Siyempre, decrease. So, saan mo i-record yung transaction na yon? Sa credit side, okay? Means the value parted with, yung value na nawala sa'yo. Okay? Baliktad naman, when we talk about liabilities and equity, you have to remember na if you want to increase both liability and equity, nasa credit side po yan sila. It's opposite of the asset. Kasi ang asset, debit yan kung gusto mong i-increase. Ang liabilities naman, kabaliktaran, if you want to increase your liabilities and the owner's equity or your equity, nasa credit side yan sila. Okay? For example, loan ka sa bank. If you loan sa bank, analyze natin ha. Kung nag-loan ka sa bangko, anong effect nun? Anong effect ng transaction na yun? Transaction na yun, what did you receive from that transaction? Pera, cash. Kasi nag-loan ka, so you receive cash. But, anong effect nun? Another effect nun if naka-receive ka ng cash from your loan? Of course, you incurred what? Accounts payable. Meron kang payable, which is a liability. Now, if you record, so if dito ka sa liability, how do you record your payables or your liability? If you want to increase your liability, nasa credit side. Okay? If you want to decrease your liability, kasi kunyari nabayaran mo na yung utang mo, yung payable account mo, magdi-decrease na siya. So, nasa debit side na siya. So, you'll understand it better when we apply it on the exercises na what I wanted you to learn or to understand or to take note ngayon is just please take note lang yung please take note of the tables. Yun lang. I don't require you to memorize it right away. Hindi ko siya nire-record ngayon, memorize nyo siya ngayon for us to apply it sa exercises. No. Just be familiar. Tingnan nyo lang yung table na if you want to increase your liability, it's on the credit side. If you want to decrease it, nasa debit. Same with equity. If you want to increase your equity or capital account, nasa credit. If you want to decrease it, okay, nasa debit side siya. Okay, yun lang yung gusto ko ngayon. You have to be familiar with this table. Take note of that table. So, again, meron pa yan. Okay, you have your revenue and your gain. When we talk about revenue, this is your income. Okay, income mo. How do you record your income? Pag nare-record mo ang income mo, nasa credit yan. Okay? Pag loss siya, or if you want to adjust your gain or your income, nasa debit yan siya. Let's apply it later on. So, let's go naman sa expenses or sa loss. If you have your loss or expense, how do you record your expenses? Your expenses are always on the debit side, okay? Expenses are always on the debit side, and loss is also on the credit side. Okay, let's discuss it further. But I just want you to be familiar with the table para guide niyo siya mamaya kung saan ba siya i-record, kung increase sa assets, saan ko ba siya i-record? I-debit ko ba siya? I-credit ko ba siya? If liability siya, if I want to increase liability, nasa credit ba siya or nasa debit? So, yun lang. Okay? This is just a guide para mamaya application sa exercises. So, medyo baka pwedeng cloudy pa ngayon, hindi nyo pa siya napipicture out, but later on as we apply it on the succeeding slides, mas appreciate nyo itong table na to. So please just keep a copy of this table para mamaya sa succeeding slides may guide kayo. Okay, now this is the double entry system. We also have the single entry system. Ano naman itong single entry system? The single entry system is very simple. You just have to list all your transactions in one entry, isang lista lang. And then and then total mo lang siya sa end. Okay? Example niya nito. Examples. You have your revenue. You have your revenue. lang. Okay. For example, you have your revenue or income. So, lahat ng income na pumapasok, ililista mo lang siya. Okay? Lahat ng expenses na na-incur mo, ililista mo lang. Lahat ng inventory or lahat ng supplies na pumapasok sa business mo, pinurchase mo, ililista mo lang siya. Lahat ng payroll or lahat ng salaries na binayad mo sa employee mo, ililista mo lang. So, that is the single entry system. Walang debits, walang credit. Purely lista. So, that is the single entry system. So, pwede siya sa mga small, especially kung maliit ka lang na business. Some are using the single entry system. Pero pagdating sa dulo, gagawa ka pa rin ng trial balance mo and your balance sheet. Of course, doon, meron ng debits and credits. So, before you can go with, or before you can use single entry system, kahit na maliit yung business mo, you still have to be familiar with the debits and credits kasi makikita mo pa rin sila sa pag gumagawa ka na ng trial balance, pag gumagawa ka ng balance sheet, because naka-indicate na doon, naka-arrange na siya debits and credits. So, you still have to be familiar. Now, we won't talk about single entry system kasi very simple lang siya. Lilista mo lang talaga lahat ng transactions. Kumbaga, ngayon, January 7, kung may expenses ka today, lista mo lang yung expenses mo doon sa specific book for expenses. Okay? If you have purchases for today, ililista mo lang din yun siya for your under your purchase book. Okay? Ililista mo lang siya lahat. So, lahat ng expenses mo, lahat ng purchases mo, lahat ng money receive mo, cash receive mo, ililista mo lang din siya kung saan siya under. For example, you receive cash. So, ilista mo yung cash na receive mo under your book of cash. So, nakalista lang siya lahat. At the end of the period, anong gagawin mo? Ito total mo lang siya. Okay, that's the single entry system. It's very different with the bookkeeping or the double entry system. Now, this is actually just concepts of accounting before we proceed to the important parts. Okay, just an overview lang of these concepts. So, going concern assumption. So, this means that an entity or a business there is a presumption or it is assumed to carry on its operations for an indefinite period of time. So, kumbaga, yung business na to, ang assumption dyan or yung presumption dyan, magpapatuloy siya for an indefinite period. And an important concept also that should be reminded siguro sa mga owners is the separate entity concept. Again, the entity is treated separately from its owners. Kaya 'di ba sabi natin the owner or the personal transactions of the owner is separate. It must be separate from the transactions of the business. Hiwalay po siya. Hiwalay po yung personal transactions, hiwalay din yung sa business transaction because your business is a separate entity. For example, hindi pwede na lahat ng transactions mo sa personal business mo, sa personal transactions mo, kung doon ka kukuha sa business mo. No. Kasi business ka pa, how would you determine the real performance of your business pag ganito? Pag always ka doon pag kinukuha mo doon ang cash. But of course, as owner, you can withdraw your capital from your capital doon sa business mo. Mamaya, makikita nyo yan na transaction. Again, what I'm trying to say is that the business is separate from its owners. So, transactions should also be separate. So, we also have the stable monetary unit. It means lang na yung financial statements dapat naka-state siya sa isang common unit of measure. Ibig sabihin, naka-peso siya. For example, sa atin, peso tayo. So, dapat naka-peso yung financial statements. By time period, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na the life of the business is divided into series of reporting periods. So, meron tayong accounting period. Pwede din, kasi some businesses, sa practice nila, pwede na yung reporting nila semi-annual, Diba? Semi-annual, ibig sabihin after 6 months. Meron namang monthly. Okay, minsan yung iba monthly, lalo na yung may mga maraming transactions. So they have financial statements monthly kasi may ipon siya if hindi natin siya gagawing monthly. So sometimes they have monthly, merong semi-annually, meron din every quarter. Ibig sabihin every 3 sorry. Kasi 'di ba quarter, we have 4 quarters. So every 3 months gumagawa sila ng FS. So how do we determine kung kailan ka magre-report? It depends on the business. It's the discretion of the business or the management. Depende sa inyo. Monthly ba kayo? Quarterly ba kayo? Semi-annual ba kayo? Annually lang ba? Or annually? Isahan lang sa isang taon. So, it depends on you. Also, we also have the materiality concept in accounting or in bookkeeping. Ibig sabihin nito, an information is material if its omission or misstatement could influence economic decisions. When we say materiality concept, it's very subjective because what may be material for me may not be material for you. Example, yung business ko maliit lang. Maliit lang business ko. And based on the records, may kumuha ng pera or may nagnakaw ng pera, which is 5,000 pesos. My business is just small. So that 5,000 pesos is material for me. Okay? Nagigets nyo yung concept na yon. That 5,000 pesos is material for me. So compared naman sa'yo na multi-million company ka, that 5,000 pesos may not be as material to you as for me. Hindi siya ganun ka-material sa'yo kasi multi-million ka. Sabihin mo, yung gagastusin mo sa investigation para malaman kung sino nagnakaw doon, mas malaki pa kaysa doon sa 5,000 na nawala sa'yo. So that's the materiality concept. What may be material for me may not be material for others. Okay? So depende yan. Depende yan siya sa business parent. It's a discretion kung ano yung accounting standards ninyo. Also, it is in relation to the cost benefit. Okay? Ibig sabihin ng cost benefit, the cost of processing and communicating information should not exceed the benefits to be derived from it. Ibig sabihin lang, kung gagastos ka, siguraduhin mo na yung benefit mas malaki kaysa sa gagastusin mo. So yun lang ibig sabihin ng cost benefit standard, okay? Okay. Next, we have the historical concept or cost principle. Ito naman, the value of an asset is to be determined on the basis of the acquisition cost. Kumbaga, if you have properties, equipments, paano mo siya record? You have to record it based on the acquisition cost. Kung magkano mo siya in-acquire, yun. So you have to record that on the book. So we also have the full disclosure. Ito naman, ibig sabihin nito, you have to fully disclose your the transactions sa financial statement mo to provide sufficient detail to disclose matters that make a difference to users, yet sufficient condensation to make the information understandable, keeping in mind the costs of the preparation and the cost of preparing and using it. Ibig sabihin lang nito, you have to disclose all the transactions na para maging sufficient siya para dun sa users. And of course, it should also be, ano tawag nito, it's understandable. Dapat mas maintindihan din siya ng mga users ninyo. And aside from that, you also have to take note kung magkano yung magagastos ninyo for the preparation of that financial statements. You also have consistency. You have consistency concept. Ito naman, this is one of the most important. Yung iba dito, hindi na siya masyadong important. But yung mga, saan ba dito kanina yun? But this is one of the most important accounting standard na dapat pinapractice, the consistency. Kasi your financial statements must be prepared on the basis of accounting principles which are followed consistently from one period to the next. Kung ano yung accounting standards na ginagamit ninyo from the beginning, yun na dapat yun. At the end of that period and even up to the next. What are examples of this? Example nito, you have your chart of accounts. Some businesses, usually from experience ko while lecturing or even in number one, wala silang chart of accounts. They don't have the list of their accounting titles. Wala silang listahan. So ang ang tendency niyan, paiba-iba yung accounting titles nyo every recording. For example, if you're using, for example cash is an account, is an account title. But madami yan. Pwedeng cash in bank, cash on hand, okay? Pwedeng cash lang, okay? So if you're using specific accounting titles, yun talaga yung gagamitin mo as you go on the entire period and even up to the next period. Hindi pwede kasi napapalit-palit kayo. Okay? You have to be consistent. So I'll explain it later on. So consistency is very vital if you want to have an efficient and effective accounting process or bookkeeping process kasi para uniform siya. Lastly, we have the matching principle. It means that the costs are recognized as expenses when the related revenue is recognized. So mamaya, i-explain ko to mamaya as we go on our our exercises. So please tandaan niyo yung consistency concept. I will highlight lang important concept mamaya para mas ma-apply natin siya to the exercises. Okay, napapunta na po tayo dun sa medyo heavy part. So we have your financial statements. What are your financial statements as discussed? Or what is financial statements? It is a formal record of your business or of your financial activities and possession of a business, the person, or the other entity. So it's just a record, diba? Naka-record lang lahat ng financial activities mo. What are examples of this? Examples na to, you're familiar with balance sheet. So what is a balance sheet? Another word for balance sheet is statement of financial position. So when we talk about a balance sheet, tatlo lang po ang dapat nyo i-remember. Okay? When we talk about balance sheet, I just want you to remember 3 things para mamaya madali tayo sa paggawa. Ano yung dapat tandaan sa balance sheet? Assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. Okay, tatlo lang. I just want you to remember 3 things pag sinasabi nating balance sheet. Assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. Okay, yun lang muna tayo. What about income statement? How do you define or what is an income statement? Another word or another term for that is statement of comprehensive income. So when we talk about income statement, there are 2 things lang you have to remember. You have to remember your income and your expenses. Yun lang ang dapat tandaan. For now lang, para mas madali tayo. When we talk about income statements, what are those elements? Income or revenue, pwedeng revenue or income, and expenses. Okay, dyan kasi papasok sa income statement. Ano ba ang, okay, wait lang, medyo may, okay, sorry for that. Medyo maingay ang neighbor natin. Okay. Sige, start na tayo. So when we talk about income statement, you have to remember two things lang. Again, it's income and expenses. Kasi dito natin malalaman anong result of that income and expenses. So pag malaki ang income mo over expenses, of course, it's profit. Okay? If mas malaki naman yung expenses mo over your income, it's loss. So two things lang ang dapat i-remember ninyo when we make our income statements. Ano ba ang dapat makita sa income statement? Ang dapat makita lang is your revenue and your income accounts and your expenses. Yun lang ang dapat makita. Okay? Again, ang balance sheet tatlo. You have sa balance sheet, makikita nyo yung assets nyo, makikita yung liabilities nyo, makikita yung owner's equity. Sa income statement, dalawa lang. Makikita ang income mo or revenue and then your expenses. When you talk about what about your statement of changes in equity or statement of retained earnings? Ano naman to? It's just simple. It's just the changes in your equity or your capital account during during that accounting period. Wait lang ha. Okay, finally. Okay, again, when we talk about statement of changes in equity, it's a report on your changes in capital account or equity. Okay, for example, yung pinasok ko na pera for my business is 100,000. Yung 100,000 ko, magkano na kaya siya at the end of the period? Okay? So, yun, yung nire-report ng statement of changes in equity. The report on your capital account or the changes in your capital account. Okay? Again, another one is statement of cash flow. Kanina sabi ko, we have two types of cash flow. We have cash inflows and cash outflows. Inflows, pumapasok sa business mo. Outflows, lumalabas. Now, in statement of cash outflows, it reports on the company's cash flows on 3 activities. Ano tong 3 activities? We have the operating, investing, and financing activities. When we say operating activities, these are the transactions or the normal operating transactions. Examples, sales, that is an example of operating activity which involves cash. Pag sales, ano yan? Cash inflow, di ba? Pumapasok or revenues. Okay? Inflows yan. Examples naman ng operating activities na cash outflow, pagbabayad mo ng expenses, pagbabayad mo ng loan mo, okay? So that, or pagbabayad mo ng salaries, okay? Pagbabayad mo yung utilities mo, etc. So that is an example of operating activities. Ano naman yung sa investing? So investing activities, this involves naman your investment transactions. Example, when you buy when you buy properties, land, it's an investing activity. Okay? So, outflow yon kasi na-purchase ka. You also have financing activities. Financing activities are example nito, you obtain a loan from the bank, you obtain loan financing, so that's financing activities. Ang pinapakita lang sa cash flow statement or sa statement of cash flow is that saan yung kunyari meron kang cash balance na 500,000. Yung 500,000 na yon, saan yun galing? So yon yung pinapakita ng statement of cash flow. Anong importance nun? Kasi ang importance ng cash outflow is you keep track kung saan nagagaling yung pera mo. Mas malaki ba yung pera na yung cash inflow from operations? Ibig sabihin mas malaki yung mas malaking sales mo, mas malaki yung revenues mo, okay? Or mas malaki yung pera na pumasok from financing activities. Ibig sabihin nun, malaki nga yung cash balance mo, but it came from financing activities or nanggaling siya sa loan, okay? Or sa utang, okay? So that's one importance of your statement of cash flow. You keep track of where the money comes from and how it is spent. Okay, so later on, we will be making this for a basic financial statements as we end our discussion later on. Okay, eto na, sabi ko kanina, isa-isahin na natin. So, as I said earlier, there are just 3 things or 3 elements I want you to remember when we talk about balance sheet. Tatlo lang po. You have your assets, you have your liabilities, and your equity. So this, sa balance sheet, it shows your financial position. Pinapakita nito yung assets mo, yung liabilities mo, yung equity accounts mo. It talks about your liquidity, your solvency, and your capital structure. Ibig sabihin nun, yung capital structure mo, mas malaki ba yung liabilities mo kaysa sa assets mo? Or gaano ka ka-solvent, gaano ka ka-liquid? Ibig sabihin, madami ba assets mo? Marami ka bang assets na are readily convertible into cash, like your properties, etc. Or malaki ba ang cash balance mo? So that's one thing na pinapakita ng balance sheet. Your assets, your liabilities, and your equity. It's very important kasi dito pa lang malalaman mo na makikita mo na dito yung position pa lang ng business sa balance sheet kasi pag nakikita mo, mas malaki yung liability niya kaysa sa assets niya. But does it automatically means na hindi na kumikita yung business just because mas mataas yung liabilities niya compared to his assets? No, not all the time naman, because this is especially normal if you are starting the business. Minsan mas malaki talaga yung liability account mo kaysa sa assets mo if you're really just starting. Take note lang ha, na sa financial position or sa balance sheet, it only shows your assets, liabilities, and equity. Hindi naman pinapakita dito yung performance mo when it comes to your sales, when it comes to your revenues. Kasi saan yun nakikita? Sa income statement. So, dun siya nakikita. So, when we talk about assets, these are resources that is controlled by the entity. So, examples nito, yun lang, I don't want to dwell with its technical meaning kasi hindi naman siya talaga applied on the real practice. When we talk about assets lang, you have just to remember it's resources. It's your pag-aari mo, properties mo. Examples are cash, receivables, inventory. When we say inventory, these are your supplies, or if you have your if you're into merchandising or you're selling, so you have your inventory, kunyari grocery store, okay? So you have your inventories, or depende if ano bang klaseng business kayo. Otherwise, pwede din, inventory will also mean office supplies nyo, okay? Other supplies pa, pwede din siya na inventory when it comes to, again, may sabi ko selling siya. When you're selling, you have your inventory. Kunyari, nagbebenta ka ng mga canned goods, okay? So you have your inventory of your cans, you have also your equipment. Equipment example, papasok dito, pwede computer equipments, or meron kang mga equipment sa business mo. Again, if you're into selling, kunyari, nagtatahi kayo, yung mga equipment nyo for sewing, so that's also an equipment. That is also an asset. Of course, you have machinery. Okay din yan. If you're into baking, bake shop kayo, aside from selling, diba? You have your inventory. Anong inventory mo? Breads. Okay. You have your baking machineries. You have your ovens. You have your, may malalaki kayong oven. So that is equipment or your machinery. Other examples also are your property, plants, and equipment. In accounting, we call it PPEs. Property, plant, and equipment. These are papasok dito yung mga buildings ninyo, mga planta ninyo. You have your house or your buildings, your lot, okay, lupa. Okay, that examples of assets. Okay, please take note of assets, cash, receivables, inventory, equipment. Pag-aari, yun lang. For simplest term, that is all your resources. What about liabilities? Okay, this is very simple. When we talk about liabilities, tandaan nyo lang obligation. It's utang. Okay, utang to siya. Examples nito is your accounts payable, notes payable, loans payable, mortgage payable. Bakit siya don't be confused. Lahat to sila liability, lahat to sila payable. But bakit meron siyang specific accounts? Bakit may accounts payable? Bakit may notes payable? Bakit may loans? Bakit may mortgage? Okay, eto. Baka ma-confuse kayo, especially those if you're already working. You have your own, again, I said it earlier, you have your own, or you must have your own chart of accounts. Kasi doon naka-base kung anong account titles ang gagamitin nyo. It's the discretion of the business or the management kung anong gagamitin nyo na account titles. Hindi ko na sinasabi na kung anong tinuturo ko dito, dapat yun talaga. Okay? No. It's the discretion. So lahat ng ginagamit natin dito ngayon, discretion ko lang to siya, akin lang to siya. You may use different account titles as long as it is proper and in relation to that transaction, explain ko, lahat to sila payable. What if the business A only uses accounts payable? Yun lang yung liability account niya, accounts payable. Wala siyang notes payable, wala siyang loans payable, wala siyang mortgage payable. Is it okay? Yes. Kasi yun yung discretion niya. But what I'm trying to to make you understand is that pwede kasi siyang may specific. For example, notes payable, what is the difference between the two? Okay, when we say accounts payable, it's the general term. It's the general term, pwede siya, lahat ng payable, pwede ipasok sa accounts payable. Kung yun lang yung account titles nyo. But when you have a specific account title, then use it. For example, sa notes payable, paano mo siya malalaman na notes payable siya? For example, ako, nangutang ako kay A. And nung nag-utang ako kay A, I issued a promissory note evidencing that utang. Sabi ko, nag-issue ako ng promissory note na I promise to pay this obligation sa ganito na araw, etc. So because of that promissory note, kaya siya tinawag na notes payable. Yun lang yun siya. But the bottom line, it's still payable. Utang pa rin siya. So kung wala kang notes payable sa chart of accounts or hindi nyo ginagamit ang notes payable na account title, then use accounts payable. It's okay. Yun lang yung sinasabi ko na you can have your specific account titles. Second, loans payable. Ito yung sabi ko kanina, pwede din na if nag-loan ka sa bangko, if nag-loan ka lang sa bank, you have loan financing, you may call it loans payable. Okay? Kung nag-loan ka naman sa bangko and then nag-mortgage ka ng property mo or you executed a real estate mortgage, kunyari, nangutang ka, then kinolateral mo yung bahay at lupa nyo. That's mortgage payable. Okay? What's the advantage of using this specific account titles? Ang advantage lang talaga nito, malalaman mo kung saan galing tong utang na to or saan galing tong payable na to. It's easier. Kasi kunyari, if naka-specific account title siya, for example, mortgage payable, if naka-specific siya na mortgage payable, pag nabayaran mo na yung mortgage payable mo, malalaman mo kasi mako-close mo na yung mortgage payable, magiging zero na siya. Okay? Compare if you're using a general account title na accounts payable, syempre 'di ba, maraming klaseng payable ang nandoon. Hindi mo agad malalaman if you already closed your mortgage payable by just looking on the books. Okay? So yun lang yung advantage nun. Ang disadvantage naman yan, mas marami kang account titles, mas marami kang books because mas marami kang account titles na ginamit. Yun lang naman yun. But if you're using softwares na, it's easier naman. Ito lang yung disadvantage if you're still doing it manually. Pero ang advantage nun, mas makikita mo yung specific transactions. Okay? If meron kang notes payable, if meron kang loans payable, or meron kang mortgage payable. Marami pa yan. Merong iba, salaries payable. Yun yung mga salaries na dapat nasweldohan na pero hindi pa nabibigay. Those accrued salaries, yung expense already incurred, yung na-incur na yung salary ng employee mo pero hindi mo pa nabibigay. That's already a liability on the part of the employer kasi you should have already given the salary pero hindi mo pa nabibigay. So salaries payable yan or accrued salaries payable yun. Example din yun. Meron din ang iba, meron din utilities payable. Ibig sabihin ng mga utilities payable is when you already received the bill for the water, electricity, the internet, etc. Tapos hindi mo pa nababayaran yun. Nababayaran yung bill. Sometimes they call it utilities payable. Babayaran pa lang. Okay? So, depende. Madaming account titles na pwede. I will just show you an example of a chart of accounts na na-prepare ko. Okay? Sa next slides. Okay, and then when we talk about equity, di ba? When we talk about equity or its capital. So, sa accounting equation, di ba, assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. Ano ba ang equity? Ang equity is your capital account, kung yung pinasok mo na investment. Now, how much is your capital account? Paano mo siya malalaman? Your equity is the residual interest. Yung naiwan, yung the residual interest when you deduct your liabilities from your assets. So assets minus liabilities, yung naiwan na yon, yung residual interest na naiwan doon is your equity or your capital account. Yun na lang yung natira sa'yo. Okay? Again, please take note if you're in pag nasa business ka, before ka may makuha dun sa business mo, you have to prioritize your liabilities. So bayaran mo muna yung mga creditors mo. Kung anong naiwan, yun lang yung may iwan sa capital mo or sa equity mo after deducting all the liabilities. So you have to pay first the liability before ka may makuha. So that's your financial position. So I hope medyo clear na kung ano yung balance sheet, ano yung assets, ano yung liabilities, ano yung equity or capital account para mas madali natin sila maintindihan later on. Yung mga diniscuss natin kanina, that's just purely concepts na will guide you or help you lang to understand. But the very foundation is you have to remember what is assets, what are liabilities, what are equity, nasaan ang debit, nasaan ang credit. So para mas madali ang pag-analyze. Okay? Now let's go to your income statement. Sabi ko kanina, there are just two things I want you to remember when we talk about income statement. Dalawa lang po. Your revenue or your income, and then your expenses. When we talk about revenue or income, this is the increase in the economic benefits during the accounting period. So it may be in the form of inflows. So ibig sabihin ng revenue na yan, inflows from your sales. Kunyari, you're into service. Kunyari, service-oriented business ka. When you say service, you provide services. For example, you're a consulting firm. So you provide consultations. If you are into ano pa ba mga services, mga human resource, etc. If you're providing human services, so that's also a service related business. Merchandising, nagbebenta kayo ng goods, nagbebenta kayo ng mga canned goods, etc. So your merchandising. Pwede naman manufacturing kayo. Aside yung manufacturing, yung nagpe-prepare ng canned goods, okay? Sardinas, okay? You prepare from raw materials to canning, that is manufacturing. When you sell those canned goods, kung nagbebenta ka lang ng canned goods, it's merchandising, okay? Binibenta mo lang. So, dyan pumapasok yung revenues mo. Revenues from your sales, revenue from your services, etc. Then, in revenue, we have this concept of cash basis and accrual basis. This is very important kasi when we talk about cash basis, ibig sabihin dito, the income is recognized at the time cash are received. Okay? Pag na kunyari, the transaction is ito. Transaction is ganito. Ako, service-oriented ako. Okay? I provide consultations. Ganyan. Sabihin natin. My client already paid me cash. Binayaran niya na ako. Pero hindi ko pa nabibigay ang services ko. Okay? Hindi ko pa siya nabibigay. For example, so, under the cash basis, i-record ko na yung income kasi natanggap ko na siya. Okay? As long as natanggap ko ng cash, i-record ko na siya as income. Ang kaibahan naman yan sa accrual basis, ang income sa accrual, i-record mo lang pag na-transfer mo na yung risk and reward sa sellers mo or sa customer mo. Ibig sabihin, magre-record ka lang ng income pag nabigay mo na yung services. Okay? So, if you're into business, if you're working ngayon sa business or sa enterprise, anong ginagamit nyo? Cash basis ba or accrual basis ba? Some practice accrual basis. Nire-record lang nila as income siya pag nabigay na nila yung services. So, makikita nyo yan mamaya as we applied sa exercises. For example, i-record mo siya as cash. Siyempre, nakatanggap ka talaga ng cash, both transactions. But yung income account mo, i-credit mo lang yung income account mo, depende. depende yan. Kung accrual basis ka, i-record mo lang ang income mo pag nabigay mo na yung services. So, paano mo siya i-record ngayon? So, mamaya, I have this example mamaya. Mamaya na natin siya, yan, para hindi siya confusing. Kasi para naka-table siya, okay? Now, we also have expenses. Expenses naman, madaling tandaan. It's the decrease in your benefits. Okay? Other examples nito, what is the examples nito? Outflow, buy ka ng kuryente, tubig, utilities. Okay? Or, nagbayad ka ng mga other expenses mo, salaries, etc. You have that salaries expense, supplies expense, ano pa ba, insurance expense, rent expense, etc. Now, I want to highlight also na baka baka may na encounter kayo or experience ninyo. Some businesses only uses OPEX, operating expenses, sa lahat ng transactions ng expenses nila. They're only using OPEX or operating expenses. So, sa operating expenses na yun, lahat yun. Expenses from the operations, pinapasok doon. Okay? Expenses sa operations na noon, for example, say, salaries, utilities, sa supplies, expense ninyo, sa internet ninyo, sa sweldo, etc. Lahat doon pinapasok sa operating expenses. Is it okay? Yes, it's okay. Paano naman po yung specific? Mayroong sales, salaries expense, supplies expense, etc. It's also okay. It depends on your discretion. It depends on your accounting standards. Now, meron din ng iba, ginagamit nila miscellaneous expenses. Those expenses na maliliit. For example, yung mga walang resibo, yung pinagbibilhan nila, yan. Pinapasok doon sa miscellaneous expenses. But please take note na miscellaneous expenses siya. So, it should be a minimal amount lang. Okay? Kasi, kunyari, bumili kayo merienda, etc. You charge it sa business. Minsan, wala namang resibo yung mga banana queue, etc. Diba? Wala namang receipts. So, you charge it sometimes on miscellaneous expenses. Yung mga miscellaneous lang na expenses, maliliit lang na expenses. So, that is your income statement or your financial position. Ito naman, I discussed this earlier when we talk about the basic statement of cash flow. Yung cash flow statement naman, it shows or presents the capacity of the business to generate cash. Okay, how do you generate cash? So it identifies the sources and disbursement of cash flows during a specific period of time. Ito yung sabi ko sa inyo. How does money comes from? So where does the money comes from and how it is spent? So it shows the cash flows from operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. So yun yung pinapakita lang ng cash flow. The statement of cash flow focuses only on your cash flow statements. Okay? Sa cash flow statements lang siya naka-focus. Ay, sorry. Okay. Ito na pala na. Now, okay, let's try this one. Let's try this exercise. Before tayo mag-answer nitong exercise na to, I just want to recall. Na-remember nyo ba ano yung accounting equation? Accounting equation is assets plus liabilities. Assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. So, please use the accounting equation. Tapos, pasagot ako nito. It's just very simple. Para lang alam natin para lang ma-apply natin siya before we go to our step 1. So magsa-start na tayo dun talaga sa process, sa bookkeeping process. Diba? Sabi ko kanina din, your income minus expenses equals either profit or loss. So please answer lang. So you can send lang your chat sa chat or kahit mamaya na sabay na lang natin sagutan. I'll give you mga 10 10 minutes, mga ganyan. 5 minutes, 10 minutes to answer. Example, eto, you have an asset down na 760. You have a liability of 360. So how much would be your owner's equity? Ano nga accounting equation? Ibig sabihin ng accounting equation, if you add your liability and your owner's equity, it should be equal to your assets. So, magkano dapat ang owner's equity mo sa letter A para maging equal siya sa assets? 400,000.
100.
Okay, sige. Sagutan niyo na muna lahat. Then, let's answer it all together later on. Okay, thank you. Ito pa. Tapos na kayo. So, ano answer niyo sa letter B? Sa what is your liability?
268,000 po.
Okay, sige. What about, so, alam niyo na yan. So, di ba, ito sa letter C, the answer is 8. 868.
868.
Okay. Letter D, you have, hindi ko na siya makuha.
250, 360.
So, i-minus nyo lang siya. Ito, dito ako curious. What is your answer on letter E? Ano
900.
answer? The answer here is 700.
Ah,
Okay. Please take note
may-
na in accounting or in
may
bookkeeping,
bracket kasi.
pag may nakita kayo naka-close and open parentheses, it means it's deficit or negative. In this scenario, ano lang siya, it means that the asset, the liability is greater than the assets. Okay, kaya siya 700,000. So 700,000 yung assets mo, your liabilities is 800. So magkano owner's equity mo? Nasa negative 100,000 siya. Okay, if you want to check it, kung talagang 700 talaga yung asset, okay, 'di ba? Accounting equation is assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. You add the two. Add mo yung 800,000 na liability and the negative 100 from the owner's equity. 'Di ba? The answer would be 700,000. 700,000 na assets. Okay. So what about your income expenses? How much is your expense in letter A?
480,000.
Okay. So we also have anong expense in the letter B?
1.860.
Okay. And letter C, you have here a profit.
440.
Mas malaki, yes. Mas malaki yung income ninyo kesa sa expense ninyo. What about your income sa letter D? How much is your income? Your income is how much? The income is 2,720. Okay. Your answer is 2,720. Tama ba ako? Okay. 2,720. So you have your income na 2,720,000 less expense na 2 million. So you have your profit of 720,000. What about letter E? How much is your income in letter E? Your answer is 1.4. Again, it's loss. So dito na scenario, mas malaki yung expenses incurred kesa sa income na pumasok. Mas malaki yung cash outflow kesa sa cash inflow. Okay, mas malaki yung income. Mas malaki yung I'll just you have your income na 1.4 million. So 1.4 million less 1.8 is negative 400,000, or you have a loss of 400,000. Okay. Okay. I can see naman your chat. Okay, tama po. Okay. So that is just a basic exercise lang on how to analyze your liability, your assets, your liabilities and owner's equity. Ito na yung sinasabi natin na debits and credits din. Kasi ibig sabihin dito sa asset, ang asset kasi debit 'di ba? If you want to increase all the assets, put it on the debit side. If you want to increase your liabilities and owner's equity, nasa credit side. Now, before we proceed to our accounting cycle, ito na talaga yung step by step. Don't worry yung answer, I will give all the, don't worry po sa answers ha. Kung hindi po ninyo nasulat, nasulat, I will give po the answer key or yung lahat po ng discussion natin ngayon, merong, exercise key. Ibibigay ko po mamaya after the discussion. May copy naman kayo ng PowerPoint ng PDF, pero ibibigay ko yung other notes po after the training.
Tsaka po ba yung video?
Yes po, recorded yung video. Pero baka matagalan lang yung video na ma-upload. Kasi depende kung mabilis yung internet ko, baka mamayang gabi ma-upload ko na siya sa drive. Kung hindi, baka bukas ng umaga po. Pero i-upload ko po siya.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay po. Thank you.
Okay, before we proceed to the accounting cycle, no, yung step by step talaga, we'll have a break naman, don't worry. We'll have a break mga 11:30 or 11:45. Mga 11:30 para hindi kayo masyadong gutom. Before we proceed to our step 1, review lang muna tayo. When we talk about debits kanina, it's on the left side. Credit on the right side. Okay? Ang debit, generally, it's the value received. Yung mga natanggap mo from the business. Okay? And then, credit, value parted with, ito yung mga napalabas mo, na wala sa'yo, binayad mo, etc. That is your credit side. Now, there are transactions na I want to highlight, I want to put emphasis. Kasi 'di ba kanina sa accounting equation, if you want to increase your equity or your capital account, anong gagawin mo? If you have a copy, yung sinend sa inyo na PDF nung PowerPoint, pwede nyo tingnan yung yung table kanina. Yung if you want to increase, ilagay mo siya dito, etc. Now, if you want to increase your capital account, saan mo siya ilalagay? Nasa credit side, okay? Don't be confused. Nasa table siya, yung pinisend ko kanina. So, let's proceed para mas maintindihan ninyo. Okay, ito yung kanina na diniscuss natin. Recording, ito talaga, isa-isa to siya. Ito talaga yung bookkeeping process na isa-isa. Kanina nag-bookkeeping process tayo na very very broad, very overview. Ito isa-isa. Hindi ko siya muna i-discuss itong 1 to 9 na to. Hindi ko siya i-discuss. Isa-isahin natin. Let's go to step 1. Ano ba ang step 1 natin? You analyze and you classify the data about an economic event. Economic event, ibig sabihin transaction. Okay, huwag natin gamitin yung mga accounting terms. Simplihan lang natin. You analyze and you classify the transaction. Okay, step 1. Okay, let's go to step 1. What is the step 1? You have to identify the events to be recorded. You have to analyze, you have to classify. Ano ba to? Ano ba to siya? You have to gather information about the transaction or the event through the source documents. Diba we discussed source documents? Ito yung mga resibo, invoices, bills, hindi lang OR ha, lahat ng klase ng resibo. So, have your receipts. Yun yung step 1. Analyze mo ngayon, i-classify mo. Should I record this transaction or not? Yun yung step 1 natin. Now, I'll give you another example. Step 2. Pag na-analyze mo na siya, yung transaction na yon, anong next na gagawin mo? You have to record the transactions in the journal. Journal ang tawag natin kasi journal po yung tawag doon sa libro kung saan siya sinusulat. Okay? Don't worry, don't worry kasi I'll give you naman the other notes later on. So, makikita nyo doon kung ano ba maitsura ng journal, etc. Though, nandito naman siya sa nandito naman mga examples sa PowerPoint. Again, to record economic impact or yung transaction sa journal, which is a form that facilitates transfer to accounts. Ibig sabihin lang, i-record mo yung transaction na yon sa journal book. Okay, example, dito na tayo. Please bear with me lang ha. If pag hindi klaro, sabihan niyo lang ako. This is an example of a general journal. Ito po ang example ng general journal. Example ito ha. Example, ito, meron kayong page number ng journal, may date yan. Okay, so this for example 2023. So April 16 yan, di ba we discussed earlier sa concept na bookkeeping and accounting is in chronological order. Ibig sabihin, sunod-sunod siya by date. Hindi siya pwedeng 16, tapos naging 29, tapos bigla naging 17, sumingit ka, tapos naging 30. No, it's it must be on chronological order. Ibig sabihin, day to day ang pag-record mo. Hindi siya yung ngayon magre-record ako bukas, hindi. Or tinatamad ako mag-record ngayon bukas na lang. So, hindi ganun sa bookkeeping. You have to record on a day-to-day basis. Ito, I have this description and particulars. Ito I just want you to, itong cash, capital, equipment, building, land yan. Account titles to silang lahat. Okay? Tapos, I just want you to be familiar lang kung ano itsura nung sa journal entry. Though gagawin naman natin siya. Itong post reference, anong ibig sabihin nito? I just want to highlight itong 111, 311. Ito, ibig sabihin nito, account number yan. Yung cash, naka-assign siya as 111. Nasa next slide siguro ata yung chart of accounts. Though, sige lang, makikita niyo mamaya. Ibig sabihin nito, ang cash number, account number ng cash is 111. So, pwede yan ang accounts receivable, 112, 113. Paano ba siya ina-assign? It depends on you. Pwede kayo mag-start ng 1, 2, 3. Pwede kayo mag-start by 100. Pwede 100, 200, 300 yung number. It depends. Pakita ko sa inyo mamaya sa next slide ata yung chart of accounts. So, basta ito example ng journal, ng general journal. You have, pag nag-record po kayo, this first line is your debit. Kita nyo? It's on the debit. Itong debit. Ang second line, may indention yan. Hindi yan sila magka-level. I mean, hindi sila magka-level. The indention, yung G capital, it's the credit side. Okay? So, yan. Credit side din siya. Antong nasa baba, yung invested cash in the business, it's parang explanation lang siya. A short explanation on what is the transaction all about. Kasi, anong advantage yan? Para pag nagre-review kayo, or for example, may mali sa recording, if you are reviewing your journal entries, mas madali nyo siyang ma-figure out. This transaction is investment. This transaction, ano to siya, bumili ako ng equipment, bumili ako ng building, etc. So, yan. So, that is the basic, format. Format lang ang pinapakita ko dito, kung ano yung itsura niya. So, pag nag-record kayo, the first line is debit, indention, credit, then merong explanation sa baba. Okay? So, you have your debit on the left side, credit on the right side. Okay. Okay, example. Wag muna to because this is an example of the the general journal. Okay. Basta ito, general journal, the journal yun. Ito, this is the general journal. So that's how you record your transactions in the book, sa journal book. Okay, ano yung chart of accounts? Keep yan. Chart of accounts, ito. The chart of accounts, ito po sinasabi ko kanina na chart of accounts. If you're starting your business, if you're into business or nag-work ka sa isang business establishment, dapat meron kayong chart of accounts. What is chart of accounts? The chart of accounts is the list of all the account titles or accounts na ginagamit niyo sa business ninyo. For example, ito. We'll be using this one. So we have here cash, we have accounts receivable, we have prepaid supplies, we have prepaid rent, we have service vehicle, accumulated depreciation, office equipment, and other office accumulate. What do you mean by accumulated depreciation or depreciation expense? Diba kasi when you have properties like services, vehicles, office equipment, machineries, buildings, it all depreciates over time. Ibig sabihin, bumababa ang value niya over time. So, nag-expense siya. For example, a car, example lang yung car, nagde-depreciate siya ng 10,000 pesos per month or ganyan. Or annually, 20% ng value ng car annually nagde-depreciate. Example lang yan. So, yun yung purpose ng accumulated depreciation and depreciation expense. To record the accumulated value of the depreciation of the property of the properties such as yung vehicle mo, yung office equipment mo. Okay, land does not depreciate kasi ito lang yung property na nag-appreciate over time, ang value niya. Okay, and then we have liabilities like what I said earlier na you can have the general payable account like accounts payable. Pwede na namang maglagay ka ng notes payable, utilities payable. I just want to highlight here yung 240. Please take note of that. Unearned tutorial revenue. This, baka ma-confuse kasi kayo. May revenue siya account, may revenue siya sa pangalan, pero bakit nasa liability siya? Okay, just an overview. This unearned tutorial revenue is used in transactions na ganito. Overview lang ha, kasi I'll be discussing it sa exercise later or nasa exercise siya na ibibigay ko. Yung unearned tutorial revenue or yung unearned revenue na accounts, pag may nakikita kayong ganito, it's a scenario na parang ganitong scenario nun. Overview lang ha. Example, I give consultations. So, yung kunyari, yung services ko, binayaran na ako. The client already gave me 50,000 pesos, example. So, di ba, naka-receive na ako ng cash, naka-receive na ako ng 50,000 pesos. The question is, did I rendered my services na ba? Wala pa. Binayaran lang ako in advance. Okay, under the accrual basis, hindi natin i-record yon as income as long as hindi ko pa nabibigay yung services ko. So, that unearned tutorial revenue is a liability on my part. Kasi, bakit? Anong utang ko? Services. I haven't rendered the services yet. Kaya siya unearned tutorial revenue. So, hindi ko pa siya ma-record as consulting revenue kasi, as tutorial revenue kasi hindi ko pa naman nabibigay ang services ko. Ma-record ko lang siya as tutorial revenue pag nabigay ko ng services. So, pag hindi ko pa nabibigay, paano ko siya i-record? I-record ko yung cash na na-receive ko, i-record ko yung liability on my end, which is unearned tutorial revenue. Mamaya, i-explain ko yan mamaya sa makikita nyo yan siya mamaya sa table and paano siya, anong credit, anong debit, anong credit. At overview lang yon. Sinasabi ko lang sa inyo na it's a liability account because yung unearned tutorial revenue, may utang ka dito. Anong utang mo? Services, kasi hindi mo pa nabibigay. Yun lang. Just want to point it as early as now para ma-take note nyo, yung unearned tutorial revenue, hindi yan revenue account. Liability account talaga siya. Eto, sabi ko kanina, owner's equity, we talk about your capital account, diba? Kasama dyan yung withdrawal nyo, withdraw nyo sa business na pera, your income summary, ibig sabihin, ito yung profit, okay? Ito yung kita nyo. So, yan yung ibig sabihin ng income summary. You have income statement. Diba, yung sa income statement kanina, sabi ko anong dapat makita. Ito na, you have your income, your expenses. Sa balance sheet, anong dapat makita? Assets, liabilities, owner's equity. So, simple lang siya. So, ito yung dapat makita ninyo pag gumagawa kayo ng balance sheet ng income statement. So, income, ang account titles nyo dito is consulting revenue, tutorial revenue. Depende yan ha. Kung nasa business kayo, nagbebenta kayo, ang tawag nyo sa income account nyo, sales. Okay? Ang tawag nyo, pwede din merchandise revenue, depende sa inyo. Or sales revenue, o pwede sales income, it depends. Expenses, we have your supplies, you have your rent, utilities, you have the depreciation expense and depreciation expense for office equipment. Ito yung chart of accounts. I want you to take note, itong number, assigned din sila. Ito yung sabi ko kanina na account number. So, nag-start ako ng 110, so 120, 130, 140, 150. 150, 160, 170. So, it depends ha, kasi pwede na mag-start ka 100, 200, 300, 400. It depends sa inyo, pwede na yung 1, 2, 3. As long as meron kayong chart of accounts, yun, goods tayo dun. Dapat meron kayong chart of accounts for consistency and uniformity. Kasi pag wala kayong chart of accounts, don't worry, I'll be explaining depreciation expense later and how to solve depreciation. Pupunta tayo doon. I-sign natin yan mamaya. Just want you to take note of this. Okay? Okay, punta na tayo sa journal entries para makita ninyo on how to apply this paano natin i-apply ito? Okay, let's go to here. Okay, the journal is a chronological record of the entity's transactions. Pero, so, kumbaga, magsa-start tayo sa, kung ano, magsa-start tayo by date. Okay, so, pag start ka ng day 1, day 2, day 3. Okay, first transaction. Now, this is our problem or exercise. Step 1, step 2 tayo ha. Step 1, analyze natin yung transaction. Now, Nelson Daganta formed the Liceo Sign Company on October 1, 2017. He deposited 250,000 in GE Money Bank under the name of the new business entity. Okay. Analyze natin. Who is Nelson Daganta? He is the owner. He is the owner of the business. Ano yung business? Liceo Sign Company. Okay? Liceo Sign Company business. Sino tayo dito sa transaction nito? Put yourself on the shoe of Liceo Sign Company. Kayo po ang business dito. Tayo yung business. Hindi tayo si Nelson Daganta, tayo yung business. Kasi, again, separate yung entity ni owner and ni business. Tayo si Liceo Sign Company. Now, si owner, Nelson Daganta, nag-deposit siya ng pera sa bangko para sa business, para sa atin, para sa Liceo Sign Company. Now, analyze. I want you to analyze debit and credit. Debit. Tayo si Liceo Sign Company. What is the value we received in this transaction? Naka-receive tayo ng 250,000 as what? As investment of the owner. So, alam na natin yan. Alam mo na yan. You have to debit what? Cash. I-debit mo yung cash. Bakit? That is the value you received from this transaction as Liceo Sign Company. Yung credit, ano naman yung credit mo? Diba? Diba? Nasa table kanina. If you want to increase your equity account or your capital account, you have to credit it. Lagay mo sa shoe isipin mo yan na si Nelson Daganta is the owner. Nag-invest siya ng cash na 250,000. So, meron siyang capital na pinasok. How much is Daganta capital na pinasok? 250,000. What is this? For his initial investment. So, that's how you record. First, you analyzed and then you journal. Diba? Nasa step 2 tayo. We are now in journalizing. Remember nyo lang na every time na mag-i-invest si owner, lahat ng investment po niya nasa Daganta Capital and then you credit it. Lahat ng investment. Okay? You receive what? Cash, 250,000. You credit Daganta Capital for his investment. Kasi investment ito. Initial investment na 250,000. Ito na po yung double entry system. Whatever you enter in the debit side, dapat meron din sa credit. Kung 250 sa debit, dapat 250 din sa credit. Kasi dapat always silang balance. Okay? Okay. Let's go to the next. Please take note lang ito. If you can write or if na-print nyo yung PowerPoint, it's okay na hindi na kayo magsulat. But if you haven't printed ito, yung binigay ni Ate Net, you may write cash, 250,000 debit, credit, Daganta Capital, 250,000. Kahit yan lang. So, para lang masundan ninyo yung next steps natin. Okay. Next transaction, ito. Next transaction natin is, wait lang. Parang may kulang siya na nabigyan. Kasi baka magtaka kayo saan galing yung, wait lang ha. Kasi baka magtaka kayo saan galing yung account titles na ginagamit natin sa problem. Just, wait lang for a while. Feeling ko, feeling ko hindi niya send yung isa na, hindi nga. Okay, I'll give you na lang. Forward ko na lang. Wait lang, may forward lang ako. Okay lang if hindi niyo siya magamit ngayon. If forward ko na lang. this is supposed to be your supposed to be answer sheet, parang ganun. Parang answer sheet nyo dapat siya as we go on with our lecture. Pero hindi siya na forward. Pero it's okay. It's okay. I just want you to, kung ma-open nyo siya, okay lang. Nasa exercise na yan, yung account titles na gagamitan. Kasi baka ma-confuse kayo saan ko nakukuha tong cash, saan ko nakukuha tong Daganta Capital, saan ko nakuha yung account titles. Just for you to be aware na nasa, siya, given siya. Okay? Okay. Let's go to the next one. Okay. Okay, on the second, nasa ano ko, exercise 2. Exercise 2. So, ito, second transaction. October 1 again, you paid the 6 months advance rent for 60,000 pesos. Now, let's analyze the transaction. Nagbayad ka daw ng 60,000 pesos para sa renta, sa advance na renta for 60,000 pesos. Now, how do you record it? How do you analyze it? Let's analyze. What did you receive from this transaction? Ano yung nakuha mo from this transaction? Nakuha ka dito ng renta, advance rent, okay? So, yun na yun. Alam mo na yun. Debit what? You debit prepaid rent. Please don't be confused. So, what do you mean by prepaid rent? Prepaid rent po yung gamit natin na account title dito. Based on sa sinend ko na bago lang. Yung sa sinend ko na bago lang, they are using prepaid rent as account title for advance rent. What do you mean by prepaid rent? Ibig sabihin ng prepaid rent, you already paid for it in advance, but you haven't used it yet. Okay? Hindi mo naman siya nagagamit kasi ngayon ka pa lang naman magsa-start ng renta, pero binayaran mo siya advance for 6 months straight. Okay? So your record what? What did you receive from this transaction? Renta. Prepaid rent. How much? 60,000. So alam mo na debit mo. What did you receive? Value receive. Again, debit, value na natanggap mo from the transaction is renta. Advance na renta, how much? 60,000. Anong nawala sa iyo sa transaction na iyo? Sa transaction na ito, what did you lose? What did you lose from this transaction? Anong pinalabas mo? Cash. Again, you paid for the 6 months rent worth 60,000 pesos. So anong natanggap mo? You received prepaid rent 60,000 or you acquired rent 60,000. What did you lose from this transaction? Cash, 60,000. Please, sorry, ano to ha? Typo error. It's not 2 months, it's 6 months. So, you paid for the rent, 60,000. So that's debit, prepaid rent, credit, cash, 60,000 pesos. So that's how you record. So, nasa journalizing na tayo. Again, what did you receive from this transaction? Prepaid rent. So that's 60,000. What did you lose or what is the value parted with in this transaction? The 60,000 pesos na cash. Kasi you paid. So, babawasan mo yung cash mo. So, that's credit. Okay? Again, don't be confused. Kasi, di ba sabi natin kanina, if you want to increase your asset, debit mo siya. Kung gusto mo siyang i-decrease, you have to credit. So, ang cash, ano ang cash? Asset. If you want to decrease the cash, then credit it. Prepaid rent is an asset. If you want to increase your asset, you have to debit. So, balance pa rin sila. Meron kang debit, meron kang credit. Okay? Let's go to the next transaction. So, here, you acquired a service vehicle in the amount of 195,000 on account. What is the transaction? Ang transaction, kumuha ka ng service vehicle. Magkano? 195,000. The question, did you pay for it cash? No. Please take note of the word or the phrase on account. Ibig sabihin, you paid it on credit, utang, okay? On account, lista. So, In short, nag-acquire ka ng service vehicle na 125,000 utang. Inutang mo yung service vehicle. Now, analyze the transaction. What did you acquire from this transaction? Debit. Anong ide-debit natin? Anong natanggap mo sa transaction? Oh, sorry. Sorry. What did you receive from this transaction? Anong natanggap mo from this transaction? Received what? Service vehicle. Okay, so alam mo na yon, debit. Now, the question is, anong i-credit mo? Mag-credit ka ba ng cash? Nawalan ka ba ng cash? No. Hindi naman tayo nagpalabas ng pera dito. But what did you incur from this transaction? Payable, liability. So, ano ang record ng ano ang pag-record ng liability? Credit. Always on the credit side. So how would you record this one? So again, you debit service vehicle, the value you received or the vehicle that you received, debit siya. So ano accounts payable? So anong credit mo? Accounts payable. 195,000 pesos. Okay? For the purchase of vehicle on account. Next, I hope it's clear na at bakit siya accounts payable kasi utang siya. Hindi tayo nagbayad ng cash dito. Inutan natin siya. Again, what did you debit the value you received? Anong in-acquire mo dito? What did you receive from this transaction? Service vehicle. Kasi nag-acquire ka ng service vehicle, that's 195,000. Anong i-credit mo dito? You credit what? Liability, obligation. Again, what is that? Accounts payable, 195,000 pesos. Okay. Next. Mga last two. Okay. Here, you acquired supplies for cash, 57,000 pesos. Now, analyze again. What did you acquire from this transaction? Supplies. Okay, binayaran mo ba yung supplies na yon? Yes, for cash. So, what did you receive from this transaction? Supplies. What value parted with? Ano yung value parted with? Or ano yung napalabas mo? Ano yung nawala sa'yo? Cash. Kasi nagbayad ka. So, how do you record it? Debit. We use prepaid supplies In this particular case lang. Kasi yun yung yun yung nasa chart of accounts nila. Okay? Prepaid supplies. But if you're kunyari sa business mo or sa sarili nyo sa office, if you use supplies, office supplies, etc., it's okay. It depends on yun how would you call it. Dito tawag is prepaid supplies. So sa iba naman, caveat lang sa iba naman, disclaimer lang, sa ibang business, they don't record supplies as an asset. They outright record supplies as an expense. Kasi kunyari, bumili sila ng supplies. Ang accounting system, ang accounting principle nila or accounting standard na ginagamit nila is that pag bumili sila ng supplies na yon, they automatically record it as supplies expense. Expense outright siya. Yun yung sa kanila. It's okay. Wala akong doon, wala tayong doon if that's the accounting standard system nila or principle. It's okay. In this particular lang, gamitin lang natin yung sa prepayments lang tayo, yung prepaid supplies lang tayo, or let's record it as an asset. The explanation naman for that is that you record it as an asset because it is not yet used. Hindi pa naman siya gamit. Okay? But along the way, we adjust. Okay? Yung for example, this 57,000 na supplies, along the way, papunta tayo sa end ng accounting period natin, nag-a-adjust tayo. That amount of supplies na 57,000 would decrease. Kunyari, nabawasan na siya ng 7,000. That 7,000 is already used. So, magiging expense na yon yung nagamit mo na supplies. But, sa first pa lang, sa initial recording niya, we record it as an asset. Okay? Yun yung natin dito, yun yung accounting principle natin dito in this problem. Baka lang ma-confuse kasi kayo, baka yung iba ng pag-record nila diretso supplies expense, okay? In-explain ko lang yung difference nila. So here, what do we receive from we receive from this transaction? We received supplies. We acquired supplies. Prepaid, hindi pa natin nagagamit. That is worth 57,000. It may be bond papers, etc. Kung ano ba, kung ano mga supplies to, ink, whatsoever. So, kasi diba, let's say yung isang company, pinta, it's signages, it may be paints, etc. Yun. So, sa kanya, it's an asset pa. It would become an expense as day by day, as long as time goes by na ginagamit niya yung supplies na yun. Okay, then we credit what? Cash. Kasi yung cash, yun yung nawala sa atin. So, debit, prepaid supplies, credit cash for 57,000 pesos. So, that's how you record that. Okay. Wait lang ha. Okay. Next is ano tayo? Okay. Now naman, October 9. Let's have mga last two. Okay, October 9, you received what? You received 87,500 cash for signs painted. Okay. Now, let's analyze the scenario. What's the scenario? What's the transaction? Nakatanggap ka daw ng pera na 87,500 para sa signages na pinintahan mo for signs painted. So, analyze, you receive cash. You provided services kasi provide ka na ng painted signages eh. Yung pera natanggap mo for the signages na pinintahan. Okay. Now, let's analyze. What did you receive from this transaction again? Cash, 87,500. So, alam mo na yon, debit. Every time na may na-receive kang cash, debit yan. Okay? Debit is the value received. So, anong i-debit mo? Yung cash mo. Kasi nakatanggap ka ng cash. Anong i-credit mo dito? Anong i-credit mo dito? Anong binigay mo dito na anong binigay mo sa transaction natin na ito? Okay? What did you, the value parted with or the value na binigay mo? Anong value yung binigay mo? Yung services mo. Okay. So, nagbigay ka ng services mo. Ano yun siya? Income yun siya. Revenue yun siya. So, how do you record that? Sorry. Sorry. So, you record cash. You received 87,500 cash. Okay? Then, you credit what? Services revenue. What did you give from this transaction? Services. So, revenue mo yon, income mo yon. Okay? So, how much is your service revenue? Again, same lang. Ito 7,500. Okay? Again, what did you receive from this transaction? Cash. So, debit. What did you give in this transaction? Services. So, ano yung services na binigay mo? That's revenue. That's services revenue. So, ang balik sa'yo, kapag nagbigay ka na ng services mo, that's revenue. Okay? Or, again, pwede na ang tawag nila dyan, services income. Sa inyo, depende. Pwede din revenue lang, pwede din income lang. It depends. Okay, dito sa atin, we call it services revenue para hindi tayo ma-confused. Okay. So, that is our October 9. Again. Okay, ito naman. I want to end here na lang siguro. Ay, mga last two pa. Sige, mga isa pa after this one. Okay, ito, please take note ha. Ito na transaction, yung 87,000 cash, nagbigay ka dito ng transaction, ay nagbigay ka dito ng services, binayaran ka ng cash. Let's compare it on the next, sa next na transaction. Ito naman, here, you painted signs for Cagayan Company. So, analyze. Nagbigay ka ng services, correct? Yes, nagbigay ka ng services. But, have you been paid? Nabayaran ka ba? Wala. Why? It's on account. It's utang. So, analyze, guys. Analyze. Okay? ikaw si Liceo Sign Company, nagbigay ka ng services mo for 170,000, not yet paid. Hindi ka pa bayan. Now, if you're Liceo Sign Company, anong debit mo? Hindi ka naman pwede mag-debit ng cash kasi hindi ka pa naman nakakatanggap ng cash kasi nga hindi ka pa nababayaran. Inutang pa sa'yo. So, kung ikaw si Liceo Sign Company, anong meron ka? Meron kang what? Receivable. Meron kang tatanggapin from Cagayan Company. So, anong ide-debit natin? You debit what? Accounts receivable, 170,000. Anong i-credit mo? Services revenue. Bakit ka magka-credit ng services revenue? Because you already gave your services. Painted signs na for Cagayan Company. You already gave your services. So credit to revenue. Now, but hindi tayo nag-credit ng cash. Why? Because we haven't received the cash yet. Inutang pa ni Cagayan Company. So, anong meron tayo kay Cagayan Company? Receivable. Tatanggapin. Okay? So, debit accounts receivable. Accounts receivable is an asset, ha? So, if you want to increase your asset, debit. Okay? Accounts receivable, debit, 170,000. May tatanggapin tayo from Cagayan Company. And credit services revenue because we already gave our services for, again, 170,000 pesos. Gets ba? Gets ba itong transaction na to? It's different ha, kasi dito sa October 9, we receive cash. Okay? That's the difference. In October 11, we gave the services, but we haven't paid yet. We haven't been paid by Cagayan Company. So, yun. Okay, thank you. So, yun yung difference nun. Okay, gawin natin to kasi, okay, last na to, promise, October 12, before we have our break. So, ayun, yun yung difference ha. Okay, eto naman, October 12, you paid 55,000 on account from October 2. What happened ba October 2? Balikan lang natin, I just want to highlight. Please take note. On October 2, di ba, kumuha tayo ng sasakyan. Inutang natin yung sasakyan, 195,000. Ano nga ba yung, yung record natin doon? Di ba, service vehicle debit, credit accounts payable. Now, ngayon naman, October 12, sorry, the transaction is ito. Di ba, umutang tayo ng sasakyan, that's 195,000 pesos noong October 2, di ba? We debit service vehicle, we credit accounts payable dun sa transaction na yon. Now, ang sabi dito, binayaran mo na yung 55,000 doon sa utang na yon. So, how do you record payment of payable? Paano nyo i-record yung payment nyo ng payables or ng obligation nyo or ng liability nyo? How do you record it? Analyze the transaction. What did you give up? What did you give in this transaction? Anong nawala sa'yo nung nagbayad ka ng utang? Nawala sa'yo credit, cash. So alam mo na, credit ang cash. But what would be our debit? Anong mangyayari sa utang mo kung binayaran mo? Syempre, your liability will decrease. Your payable will decrease. So, back to our table. Sa liability natin, if you want to decrease your liability, what will you do? You put it on the debit side. So, ano nangyari dito? Accounts payable, debit, 55,000. You credit cash, 55,000 for what? For the payment of accounts payable. If you remember on October 2, our accounts payable is on the credit side. That's 195,000 pesos. On October 12, you already paid 55,000 pesos. So that's why debit mo ang accounts payable mo nasa debit na. So 55,000. Ibig sabihin, from 195,000 pesos ngayon, less 55,000 na yung utang mo. Okay? Makikita niyo yan mamaya sa next na slides natin na paano natin siya isa-summarize yung 195,000 na minusan siya ng 55,000. So, magkano na lang yung accounts payable yan. Makikita niyo yan mamaya. Just want you now to follow lang muna yung transactions, yung pag-entry natin ng transactions kasi iniisa-isa natin, dinadahan-dahan natin for you to understand bakit siya debit, bakit siya credit, okay? Again, the first transaction on October 2, nangutang tayo ng sasakyan. That's 195,000 pesos. So, nag-credit tayo ng accounts payable doon. Now, on October 12, sabi dito, nagbayad tayo ng 55,000 pesos. From that accounts payable or from that account, yung utang na yon. So, if you paid for your payable, if you paid for your liability, or you paid for your obligation, you credit your accounts payable, your payable account. Bakit? Kasi, based again dun sa table, para hindi kayo ma-confuse, if you want to decrease your accounts payable, debit. Okay? So, bawasan mo siya. So, that's why, debit na yung 55,000 na accounts payable, and then you credit cash. Bakit again credit cash? Because, di ba, credit is the value parted with, pinalabas mo na wala sa'yo. What did we loss in this transaction? Anong nawala sa atin nung nagbayad tayo ng utang? Cash. Kasi, so ibig sabihin, yung cash natin, nag-decrease. Pero yung utang natin, nag-decrease din. Okay? So that's how you analyze. Para hindi kayo malito. When you kasi you know, in accounting, the very crucial and the very important step is ito. Step 2. The journalizing, the recording. Why? Kasi dito magbe-base lahat. Dito magbe-base lahat ng pag-summarize ninyo, balances ng accounts ninyo, dito magbe-base ang FS ninyo. So pag mali ang pag-record ninyo, pwedeng hindi siya maging balance. Or pwedeng maging balance siya, pero mali yung ginamit nyo na account titles. Mali ang debit nyo, mali ang credit nyo. Okay? So that's why it's very crucial. Kaya dito tayo sa recording, dadandahanin natin. Okay, any question? Bakit siya naging debit yung accounts payable? So again accounts payable, pag nagbayad ka, magdi-decrease. So ide-debit mo. Okay? Tingnan nyo lang yung table para hindi kayo ma-confused. Okay? Accounts payable is a liability. Okay? Okay, last na to, promise. Para medyo madali lang naman to. Itong withdrawal. Again, yung withdrawal, yung owner, nag-withdraw siya ng nag-withdraw siya ng pera sa business, sa business niya or sa capital account niya. Of course, that is allowed naman. You can withdraw naman. So how do you record your withdrawal? Let's analyze. Pag nagwa-withdraw ka ng pera sa business, di ba tayo si Lisea Sign Company? Pag nagwa-withdraw ng pera si owner, anong nawala sa business? Cash. So alam mo na yan. Credit, cash. But, anong ide-debit natin? Kung si owner nag-withdraw, saan natin anong ide-debit natin? Ide-debit natin always yan. Pag nag-withdraw siya, to her Daganta withdrawal, or ang iba tawag dyan, drawing. Drawing is another term for withdrawals yan. Daganta withdrawal, 25,000 pesos. Okay? So, anong nawala from this transaction? Cash, 25,000 pesos. Okay, malapit naman natin siya matapos yung journal entries. So, we can have our break na ngayon. So, but please lang ako doon, para masundan din ninyo yung saan ko kinukuha tong Daganta withdrawal, ito yung, yung account titles. You can refer to the exercise na PDF na sinend ko bago lang sa group chat para lang makita nyo kung saan ko kinukuha yung account titles kasi given siya doon. I'm sorry it was not sent lang earlier para sana pwede kayong magsulat doon. But it's okay, I will give naman the exercise key after this. So pwede yung maging practice set. Para may practice set kayo after. So we can have our break. Can we resume at 1 p.m.? Okay, 1 p.m. You may leave the Zoom if para makasave ng data and bandwidth. Pero hindi ko lang siya i-close. Ay, wait lang. Baka kaya pa ba ng data ko? Kaya pa naman. Hindi ko lang siya i-close, but you can leave. Same link lang tayo mamaya. And if you have questions later or dito sa recording, sa journalizing, if you have questions, you can message me sa Zoom para masagot ko siya after the break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ipopause ko lang yung recording ha. Please remind nyo na lang ako mamaya. Baka makalimutan ko siya i-resume. Ay.